Good night, Trinidad and Tobago. It is Sunday night, bang in the middle of the Christmas season that nobody is celebrating. Nobody in Trinidad feels like it's Christmas because, as usual, our P&M nightmare before Christmas has ruined the country, the season for everybody. I'm here doing a live video to talk a little bit because people just so upset and they don't know what else to do or to say, and they're looking for guidance. And I really just want to let people know, in all the fear, in all the anger, my throat's sore and I apologize for that. Somebody said to me today, sometimes I feel like I'm losing hope. I told her no. Hope is rising now. What you're feeling, what you're actually feeling is the birth of hope. That's what you're feeling. You're feeling the country trying to right itself. You're feeling the people trying to wake up. And I want to tell you something, eh? The Jamaican Observer shared today, and I got real upset, and I posted just now with some expletives because I am so angry. I am angry. I'll tell you why I'm angry. Because even though Trinidadians don't know how much better this country could be, just normal, forget what Trinidad has the potential to be. If we deal with just normal, you know what's normal? Normal is the Jamaica Observer breaking news. The Passport, Immigration and Citizenship Agency online passport renewal application process for adults is now operational. To use the system, customers need to log on to PICA's website at www.pica.gov.jamaica and begin the process from any location in the world, any hour of the day or night. Now, I told you all that 3 years ago, and people say, this man talking madness. Renew your ID card online, renew your passport online, renew your driver's permit online. But the rest of the world zooming past us. Now, I tell you why I got real vex. I got real vex. Because Jamaica 2 years ago couldn't pay the national electricity bill. The actual state of Jamaica almost had their electricity interrupted. They couldn't pay the bill. That Jamaica is now going so far past Trinidad and Tobago that there are organizations in Trinidad and Tobago that using Jamaica as a guide. The Guyana, we used to laugh at, y'all used to piss on Guyanese people. Guyana was the butt of jokes in the Caribbean. I mean, you could say anything about Guyanese, nobody cared. Guyana, we treat them like dog, we treat them like mangy dog. And look, Guyana ain't just match us for boom, you know. What is going on in Guyana right now has world economists struggling to put a cap, because to say that Guyana is exploding financially is an understatement. We've never had to come to terms with an economy growing 82% in a year. That's big bang kind of numbers. I mean, when we get 4% growth, it's massive. 5% money in the street, 6% money, no problem. 82%. Guyana is about to make history. They just leave it there because there still are no words. We're waiting to see what they do with this, because it is literally an inconvenient amount of money that's about to fall on Guyana. It is money that is going to cause them a problem. People are going to have to try to find ways. Banks will be, because of the amount of money that the people are going to be getting, for a little while, banks will be paying you negative 17 and 18% interest, because people will be coming to the banks with wheelbarrows of money. This is not a joke. Truckloads of money. We're talking an 82% complete economic boom. The banks are not going to be able to handle it. People are going to be told, keep your money home. Nobody ain't breaking in nobody's house for their money. People throwing money in the street and people passing and cussing them, hey, clean up your money now. That's the kind of money Guyana is about to have. Now, Barbados, $2 to $1, United States. Barbados went through hell. They went through hell for mere Motley to come and take over and put in all these austerity measures to right size. They still held their currency value. They still held their value, their values, their quality of life. Bajan people said, look, fix it, Mia. We're trying you. And again, I mean, why am I angry? I realize the thing that I am most angry about is that Trinidadians don't realize how pregnant with potential this country is. I mean, if Trinidadians only had a clue what is being stolen from them before it touched ground. When we were selling gas for 13 cents, we were actually getting 52 cents, you know. But there are 3 levels of theft taking place before it hit you. Listen, if Trinidadians woke up to what was done to them, I fear for this country. If Trinidadians only realize the size, if Bova, Bitam, Lavantel and Sealots only realize what they could be, what they should be, if it wasn't for what was done to them, Trinidadians will just stop. This country, Jeremy, though right things like Trinidadians don't want to fight for their country, I do not believe that that is true. Trinidadians have been put down in a way that it is taking a long time for them to find their national spirit. So they've been ripped from the country. Some of these political parties have ripped their supporters from the country. The UNC don't campaign for Trinidad and Tobago, you know. The PNM don't campaign for Trinidad and Tobago, you know. The UNC and the PNM campaign for territories. They campaign for constituencies. They talk about diehard constituencies and swing constituencies and marginals. But none of them campaign for Trinidad and Tobago, you know. And I want you to understand, the things we talk about, the reason people have a problem accepting these things that I say, because no other politician or political party ever came to the people in this country before and just tried to explain to them. Because it took a while for this most simple of concepts, that we get more water from the sky than we could ever possibly use. It took a while, and now Chinese are making memes. Now Chinese are understanding that the country can't be wet and the reservoirs dry. Chinese understand that this now, they get into the point where they're understanding and they're blaming Wassa. And that's cool. That's a good stopping point. Blame Wassa. But at some point, they're going to realize that somebody is calling that shot. Because you see, Wassa is a function of the state. Wassa could wake up tomorrow and get an order from the government and start to send orange juice through those lines. Whatever the political will is of the government, that's what happens. The reason Wassa is not working is because the government does not want Wassa to work. And at some point, there's going to be a national awakening. And the Progressive Empowerment Party exists to give Trinis something to leave and stop at. Because if you don't have that, the country will explode. When you realize that you cannot have a conversation about who thief more, who shit the bed less between the PNM and the UNC, you cannot have that conversation. That's not the conversation that you need to be having. The conversation that you need to be having is, how is it possible that for 57 years, that is the best that we've done? And I know it takes a lot for everybody. It takes a lot. It takes a lot for people if you ever in any kind of activism. You talk to people, psychologists and first responders. You talk to people who get involved in domestic violence and domestic abuse cases. You talk to them and you find out that when victims of abuse, when it dawns on them that their situation is not normal, they want answers. And when they get the answer they're looking for, when they realize that not only is their situation not normal, but it's been deliberately done to them, there is a moment of cognitive dissonance where your brain actually fights the knowledge. Your brain don't want to believe and accept that your mother or your father or your uncle or whoever close to the family that doing you these things, the priests, whoever, that they're not supposed to be doing this, and that it is wrong, and that you should have been protected, and somebody should have looked after you, and as an innocent, you're not responsible for any of it. And it brings everything into question, and it brings their whole life and their whole existence. And this is at that moment, people could go mad. People could lose their mind. And that is why your brain has this ability to block shock from you. It blocks it. It blocks the shock. Your brain lets you take it in bite sizes that it could process. The word is processing. When they say I'm processing an issue, it means that you're taking it in a way that you could manage, that you could hold, and you could treat with this information. When Trinidadians realize that the water, I mean, I keep saying this and I keep saying it, and I know that it is hammering home, that the water that falls in Diego Martin alone is more water than we could use. A lightning strike, one lightning strike hitting the ground has enough electricity in it to power New York City for more than a year. One lightning strike hitting the ground, seconds. Has enough electricity in that one single strike to power the entirety of New York City for more than a year. There have been rainfalls in this country, in the hills of Diego Martin, that have been washed straight out to sea, that could have given you in this country more water pressure. I mean, we should never have had a water problem. Somebody had to decide, let it run down, do not develop it. You see, Maraval, when the Queen lived, when the Maraval Reservoir was built, the population of Trinidad was half what it is now, less than half. So that means Maraval, that relies on that Maraval Reservoir that we went and we did videos at, that reservoir was built for half the population of Maraval that's there now. And that the government's responsibility, I told you all, in Manchester, the electricity company in Manchester, and you could go and Google this, none of this I'm making this up, you can check it on YouTube, there are videos. When Manchester has football games in Manchester, there are people on shift whose job it is to be ready for the final whistle, so that they could immediately start to increase the volume of electricity in the grid. Because they already know there's going to be a 60 to 70% increase in drawdown for the next 30 to 45 minutes as people get up from watching the game. Because in Manchester, once that ball kick, everybody stop. And their job is to make sure that there is electricity in the grid for that surge of demand. Just people getting up and flicking on the electric kettle or the stove to make a cup of tea. Just that. Just to make that cup of tea. Just to open the fridge and go and look for something to eat and to cook and to make your sandwiches. Just that. Air conditions going on, washing machine, dryers, people start back their lives. And they know. And then it goes back to normal. Settles. You see, the government's responsibility is to make sure that the state agencies are set up to run that way. So that there is something called the national consumption average. And we would know, say that's 1.8 million gallons a day. It's showing you a reference, right? Let's say it's 1.8 million gallons a day. We know that's the national consumption average of water. But what you really need to have is regional. And I'm giving you this information because it's important and it's WASA because it's simple. In each community, in each constituency, WASA knows, WASA workers know, WASA technicians turn off water by where Monkoko Road meets Westmoreland's Boulevard, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Westmoreland's gets waters for 2 days and North Goodwood Gardens, they get water the other 2 days, and that's been going on for about 30 years. You have that knowledge. You have that information. I want to say something to you. The Diego Martin River that starts in the hills of Diego Martin, that ends at Westmoreland's, that overflows at banks from time to time. If we put a sluice gate at the end of the river to keep it permanently full, that's a reservoir. You build nothing else but a gate. When people tell you it's flooding because tide in and tide out, it's flooding because we're producing more water than could leave the land. And that we were supposed to, in all of our development, because in any first world developed nation, developers and city planners and urban planners, when you're planning, you have to plan for precipitation. What you're doing with the rain. And it can't just be box drain and slipper drain. It can't just be run the water down the hillsides and catch them in a box drain and send them to a canal and send it out to the sea. That's not water management. Water management is knowing what you're doing for the consumption of the constituents you're responsible for. And that's WASA's job. I'm not dwelling on WASA. Those of you who just joined, I'm using WASA as an example, but I want you to understand because we need our people to wake up. We need our people to wake up to this. Let's switch gears. When you buy a car, every $100,000 of purchase price that you pay, $13,000 is going to the bank for no reason, no purpose other than they are allowed to charge that as a spread in the foreign exchange. There's a 13% tax on everything we consume in this country, exerted by the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, exerted by the banks. Everything that you buy, every $10 that you spend, the banks take $1.30 once it's imported. I'm going to tell you something, 99.99% of our consumption is impacted by import. Unless you have a Julie mango tree in the back of your yard and you're living on mango, because everything else is imported. And the banks in Trinidad and Tobago take $13,000 of every $100,000. That's why they make the billions of dollars that they make. That spread that we allow Trinidad's banks is insanity. The rest of the entire Caribbean, nobody has a bigger spread than 2%. Jamaica has a higher spread, and that's coming down. Jamaica had to do it because Jamaica was in a total financial mess, but Jamaica has right-sized itself. There was a time nobody in Jamaica would buy land or buy property because they thought Jamaica would collapse. If you're buying land and property in Trinidad and Tobago right now, with hard-earned money, not coke money, not corruption money, not money laundering money. If hard-earned money, you're buying land and trying, you're rolling the dice. Because that land can be worth half that or less. We don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows. You live in a country where the price in the showroom is already artificially inflated 13% by the banks. And then you are going to go through a finance system that adds a 20% to that 13%. And nowhere in the world is that allowed but Trinidad. That is gangster banking. Time magazine referred to the banks in Trinidad and Tobago as predators in paradise. You are being charged loan interest on top of foreign exchange spread tax. We are even talking government. Listen, every $100,000 that you pay for a car, $50,000 going to the state, $13,000 going to the banks. That's $63,000. That leaves what, $37,000? That there is cost of car, shipping, insurance, profit. That's $37,000. You should be paying a quarter, a third of what you pay for vehicles in this country, just by managing the spread and what we charge as taxation on cars. Again, Trinidadians get paid the least money in the developed world. We have the lowest value currency in the developed world. If you are 7-1 to a US dollar, and no Mariano Brown, no Larry Hawaii, no Vasan Bharat, none of these guys are going to come on Hema show or on the show with Fazir Mohammed and explain to you why our dollar has been artificially held at $6.01 buying and $6.77 selling for as long as it has. Nothing there is about floating the currency. Nothing there is about the value of our spend. Nothing there is the value of our imports or exports. A lot of that there is impacted by the demand for the purchase of US dollars posed by corruption and drug trafficking. Believe that? Believe that? It's like the value of our real estate. All of our real estate has been impacted by drug lords and corrupt people buying up real estate, creating an artificial demand and sending the price to the roof. I mean, you could look at everything, and I know a lot of these things are things that you don't want to pay attention to, but I want you to understand. Because when people ask, how do we fix it? How we fix it is how every other country in the world fixes it. And that is through your labor, through your vote, and through your consumption. When Hong Kong and Lebanon and Colombia, when these countries take to the street, when they take to the street, it's not to riot, you know. When they take to the street, it is to remove their labor and their consumption from the economy. Now, big business cannot take hits for too long, especially big businesses built on credit. They spent today's deposit 90 days ago. So the banks have a space that they will allow them to expand into. For every day that they don't produce and every day that they don't sell, the expense of the business remains. But they've spent an anticipated deposit from today on goods and services bought and sold and consumed 90 days ago. 90 days ago. So you don't have to go in the streets. Tell them, miss me with your water cannon bullshit. You don't have to go in the streets and get locked up in fancy maxi taxis that they bring down to lock up chilies. You don't have to go in the streets. You could stay home with your Quran with your Gita, with your Torah, with your Bible. You could stay home with your rosary beads. You could stay home with your Monopoly. You could stay home and play some All Fours. I just saying to you. You could just stay home. And immediately, the conversation changes as to how do we treat with this. Because right now, the people of Trinidad and Tobago have no idea that their labor and their consumption is what holds up this entire country. Being unable or unwilling to put country first has left all of us willing to go in the bank during this Blue Note fiasco and take whatever little advantage we get and win. Nobody's winning. We are all losing. We are all in the same boat when the mark busts if this country fails. Trinidad and Tobago. Jeremy, I hear what you're saying, but I want you to understand. I'm just letting you know that protests don't have to be violent. And protests don't have to be riot. Colm don't have to get the riot he think he want to get, you know. See, these fellas want to declare martial law. I feel that's what they want. I feel the people who operate and pull the chains behind them want to rule by fiat like Maduro and Chavez. They want to rule like that. They want no more democracy. Take away your rights. And the only way they could get to legally take away your rights is if you give them a justification that challenges the Constitution. So don't give them that justification. Don't. Don't even put it in your mind. Riots and violence always works out bad for the smallest man. It damages the middle class. These are the people that you want to protect going forward. Going forward. Normal. If Trinidad was just getting normal, we had more water than we need. You'll never have to buy a bottle of water again in your life. Normal. I just talking to you about normal. I'm talking about the potential the country have. I'm talking about normal. Normal for Trinidad and Tobago. We could never run out of water. Normal for Trinidad and Tobago. We're supposed to have between 1 and 2 million tourists visit this country every year and spend between 1 and 5,000 US for the duration. So 1 million people spending 1,000 US dollars is 6 billion TT. Just that. Just that. And that money goes straight into the economy. That money goes to car rentals and apartment rentals and hotels and guest houses and restaurants and bars and nightclubs and taxis. That money just goes straight through the economy. One time. Now, there are people who say that they have nothing for people to see in Trinidad. That's not true. Trinidad and Tobago is quickly and easily the best, especially Tobago, the best tourist destination in the world. Normal, we're supposed to have ferries running between Trinidad and Tobago 4 times for the day. Those ferries should originate at different locations so that people could leave south and go to Tobago. People could leave town and go to Tobago. The whole issue of trying to build a port on the east coast of Trinidad and Tobago, especially Toco. Toco is probably the roughest water, the most violent water that we have in Trinidad. So for them to build that, they're going to have to build all kind of beach break and water break to hold back that current and the violence that happens there. And it will send those currents swirling down the road and it will change the shape of Trinidad and Tobago. But they don't have to care about that. You don't have to care about that. We need to look. We need to look at the world and see what the rest of the world gets as governance. I call this video, I was born at night, but not last night. This is for Faris Al-Rawi. You may be getting cocky with how easily you are getting away with the things that you've gotten away with. One Alexandra place was a crime. You and Patrick Manning didn't have the authority to rent an unfinished building to the state. 3 Alexandra place or street or whatever is even worse. That was you getting cocky. And this West Indian cannabis giving your family a heads up because it's just too coincidental. And I had to explain to somebody today, a real PNM supporter, I had to say, listen, anywhere else in the civilized world, a government would have gotten fired for what the Attorney General just did. Because there would have to be an investigation. You cannot tell the public that that is a coincidence. What Stuart Young and Colm Imbert are doing with privileged financial information that they cannot have, that the banks cannot give them, these are jailable offenses. These things in the world, in the real world, couldn't be happening. But it's only happening in Trinidad and Tobago because they've put us in a place where we see the world through PNM and UNC eyes. So every time the conversation starts is Live Sport and Call the Heart and Piako and Ish and Steve and it has become on the ground a total distraction where the people don't realize that there ought to be an investigation into Rohan Senadan. He is the Minister of Works. And if you got away with QREP roundabout and you still end up finding yourself in a position where you build a bridge in Grandy on your land, anywhere else in the world, Donald Trump wouldn't dare try that. Bill Clinton couldn't. They would investigate you immediately. Canada, they'll pull it down. The news wouldn't let you go. But Trinidad and Tobago has gotten to a place where the government has lulled us into false complacency. And we accept foolishness. I had to tell people today who start to fill up my news feed with a messenger with, they catch skimmers in Trinity Mall. Great job, TTPS, move on. Don't dwell on it. What else are you dealing with, TTPS? I want to see that kind of energy spent on the real things that matter in Trinidad and Tobago. And I said today, serious now, investigate Faris over the Alexandra Street leases and West Indian cannabis. Investigate him. Investigate the man. Investigate Rohan Sinanan properly over the bridge in Sangre Grande and the project in QREP. Investigate him. Investigate Coleman Stewart over the release of private and privileged banking information and possible law enforcement encroachment evidence they illegally possessed. Investigate Keith Rowley and Michael Kwamina for alleged perversions of justice in the Daryl Smith affair. That's supposed to blow up big now. We're not just dealing with Daryl's groping. We're dealing with a government that thought itself so far above the law that they pervert the law. Investigate Camille Robinson Regis and the $193,000 in the paper bag. The public has to know. It has to be properly investigated. Release the camera footage of her taking it from one bank to the next if that is true. Fire all of them and line them up behind Marlene Fung to have questions to answer before the courts. I'm telling you, Keith Rowley and Michael Kwamina have questions to answer over this Daryl Smith matter. Parade them into the next elections as a veritable rogues gallery. Insist that law enforcement expedite all these matters comprehensively, as collectively they bear a weight of misbehavior in public office and a pattern of wanton disregard for the law. Regardless of the color of the political jersey you wear, know this. The offices of state being corrupted here are wreaking havoc on this nation and propelling it to failure. It cannot be acceptable that the Piaco racketeers walk free, or that the hundreds of millions lost to live sport can be just swept away and those responsible allowed to enjoy their ill-gotten gains. Emailgate scarred this nation and damaged our democracy. And if this were a real country, someone would have triggered an investigation into possible treason and would not have stopped until somebody was brought to justice. This Blue Note fiasco has indelibly damaged faith in our central bank and trust in our currency. We have played this game too long now. Either we're a nation of law or let's let anarchy reign. But let's end with the bullshit of bullets for small fish and passes for crime bosses. Someone needs to tell the nation where responsibility for all of this lies, where the TTPS ends and the DPP begins. No, the barbers and susu investors are not our problem. Stuart Young is on shit, and we the people need not only tell him so, but insist that he be fired for wasting our blasted time. Same with Johnny Faris Sukaran Al-Rawi. Our treasury is not the Nahus family piggy bank. These people are getting bolder at the top because at the bottom we allow ourselves to be distracted. Stop that. We need to fix our country. Step one has to be to ensure that those who swear oaths in public office are made to keep them or suffer consequences for breaking them. Nothing else is acceptable, regardless of which color political shirt you wear or which political masquerader currently occupies our office of state. Faris Al-Rawi, I was born at night, but not last night. I do not believe the stories that you and your family members are rushing to put out in the public space. I absolutely believe that West Indian cannabis, which sounds so much like West Indian tobacco, was set up to be a company to benefit from the decriminalization of marijuana, but that it was registered a full 9-10 months before the legislation was passed, comes across as an abuse and possible misbehavior of public office. Releasing privileged information as to the operation of the nation state and plans for the legislative agenda to an advantage few at the disadvantage of others is a criminal act. Trinidad and Tobago cannot accept that you created a company called West Indian Cannabis to sell clothes, and in the business section of the registration, when it asks what is the core business of this company, you said other. That's unacceptable. I am going to the Ministry of Legal Affairs over the next couple of days to register West Indian cocaine, West Indian heroin, and West Indian meth. I want to see if the Ministry of Legal Affairs will allow me. Now they sent me a list, people send me a list and say these are for studies. West Indian cocaine studies, West Indian heroin studies, West Indian meth studies. We're gathering to study the impact, all the bullshit that they're trying to tell you. I want to see what the Ministry of Legal Affairs does with that. And in the list of information required, when you ask what is the purpose of West Indian cocaine and West Indian heroin and West Indian meth, we're going to say other. Because we don't know. We want it open. Today, we could be discussing the impact of it. Tomorrow, we could be waiting for legislation that decriminalizes it so that we could get into business. There is no way forward for this country if some are jailed for a product that others are going to make money off of. Government ministers, the Prime Minister himself said to the nation that people in high society have been using marijuana and get away with it scot-free, while there are little black boys in that jail languishing on a weed charge. And that is criminally unfair. And if anything should have happened when the Attorney General was crying his crocodile tears, it was to say in the Parliament that we have immediately sent instructions to the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Commissioner of Prisons to immediately cease and terminate all actions against all persons of any kind for marijuana possession, and to release from prison and custody anybody being held solely for a marijuana possession charge. You see, if you're serious, be serious. Action it. Let that have been the news, not that your family set up a company that allows them to traffic in marijuana. People asking where the opposition, your guess is as good as mine. I do not know if Kamala Persad-Bissessar thinks that there are enough unforced errors and own goals that the PNM could score that would make people forget the 5 years and 6 months of hell that was her term in office. Kamala Persad-Bissessar did some good things, yes, but it is so badly overshadowed by the mismanagement that her followers and defenders want to tell the public that it's not her, it's people who were around her, and yet those same people still around her. And those defenders cannot explain why the absolute authority of the leader of the opposition, the leader of the party, and the head of government couldn't remove those people from inflicting that insanity on the people of this country. I do not think that the UNC by itself, this little aberration in local government aside, I do not think they are going to make a good showing by themselves in the general election. I do not know what could be done to rescue that opposition. I know they have good machinery, and I know that they have good finance money. The two things that the Progressive Empowerment Party is working very hard to get. Because the Progressive Empowerment Party stand alone fighting 41 seats in the general election. If we had dollar for dollar to match the PNM and the UNC, we would win. If the media wasn't being so reprehensible and unconstitutional and gave us the equal time that we were entitled to by constitutional law, there'd be nobody left in the PNM and the UNC. They are literally trying to hide us. Somebody that I respect greatly wrote me this morning and he asked me to change the way that I come across sometimes. And he wanted me to temper it. And I tried to explain to him. I created something called counter shock to deal with the media blackout and the shock doctrine of the PNM and the UNC. Counter shock literally created a space for the information that we were putting out, riding on the things that I was daring to say. Now the entire nation is calling the Prime Minister a jackass. 3 years ago when I was on Fazir's show, and Fazir asked me, you call the Prime Minister a jackass? We had to have a conversation about it then. The truth of the matter is, we should have long ago shaken off the PNM and the UNC. The people who are still justifying, supporting either of those parties, despite all that you know. I listen to people calling on the radio, and they don't want to have factual conversations, you know. They want to conveniently quote law enforcement. Nobody get arrested, nobody get charged, nobody get convicted. It didn't happen. Trinidad and Tobago, we are being told that once the police and the DPP don't do their job, it didn't happen. And that's unacceptable. We are all at risk, and we are all in danger, and we all have to decide if we are staying here. Too many people tell me on a daily basis that they're leaving, and that's sad, because Trinidad and Tobago still is the most blessed nation on planet Earth. Trinidad and Tobago still could be the wealthiest nation. In 10 years, 15 years, Trinidad can be the wealthiest nation on Earth. Trinidad and Tobago, per capita, we could end up with the highest quality of life on the planet. People would be using us as an example and sharing stories about us on social media. There are only two choices in the next election. Vote for a better country, a rescued Trinidad and Tobago, or vote one of the racist, corrupt parties, both of which represent the same contract mafia, who on election night, the serial financiers, the big guns, would have boxes of red and boxes of yellow. They would have put 15 million in the PNM and 15 million in the UNC. They would have given money to the leader of the PNM. They would have given money to the leader of the UNC. And at the end of the tally, who win? Open that box, put up those colors, invite them over going forward. You can't continue to believe, to be fooled into believing that your vote matters if the people you're voting for are for sale. We could all leave. You could leave with nothing. Chinese are the most talented people in the world. Leave with nothing. Like the Mexicans. The Mexicans get into America, they come with the shirt on the back. And as they land, they want a job. Start to save one time. Sleep under a tree for a week. They get a week's pay. They rent a little hovel. And then they're working harder. Now they have a base. And they're working harder. They get a second job. They're working that. So you don't need $1 million to leave Trinidad. You can go. No. Leave everything and go. But instead of doing that, how about 1.4 million of us, for the first time in our country's history, stand together for the country. Not for our naked self-interest, but because we stand together for the country, our interests get met. Stand together on policies that make sense. Housing, affordable housing for all. You don't have to do admats with the HTC and the Minister of Finance to see how you could benefit. Everybody have the same benefit. Level the play field. Jobs for all. Level the play field. A better education, prestige education for all. Level the play field. Public health that is of such a high standard, all the private hospitals close down. Sell themselves to the state. Public health that is so perfect that everybody is taken care of. Water in your taps 24/7. A nation where hope and opportunity abounds, where the average person could have a job who wants a job. If you have a job and you want a home, you could own a home. So that crime is no longer an option or a concept in the minds of people who have an opportunity to develop themselves to their full potential. That could be our country. That could easily be our country. We just have to want it. The purpose of this video was to tell you, stop taking spin. Stop accepting nonsense. Stop. It is time now that we ask for our organizations of state to work. And where they don't work, that we vote out completely the government responsible. WASA is not to blame. Keith Rowley and Kamla Prasad Bisesa are. Patrick Manning and Bastio Pandey are. They were in charge. Trinidad is a dot. We have 1.4 million people here. They have 19 million in New York City. Let water go now. Let current go. Let current go in New York City. See, Bloomberg asked to start a clap. We could have the most functional of nations where this failing cesspool now stands. It's going to take a vote, and it's going to take our labor and our sensible consumption. It is time. It really is time. I don't think we're going to get another chance. I don't think. You all see how hard I work. You see how hard I fight. I do this full time, 24 hours a day. This is what I do. Michael Moses wrote me today. I want to tell you what Michael Moses told me. Because every now and then I like to touch with the people. Michael Moses told me today, make sure and take Christmas Day off and relax with your family. it will still be there after. And everybody is saying to me, you push too hard, you work too hard. But I want you to know, I can't do this for the next 5 years. Campaign and politics. There are people who think that the country, they want their party in office, but they want Phillip to hold them to account. That's not a job, and that's not a sustainable thing. What you want is a country that develops. You want a plan. You want your foreign policy plan. This is our foreign policy plan, right? Recall all high commissioners and ambassadors. Shut down all of the high commissions and the embassies. Shut them down. What we own, sell. What we renting, terminate the lease. Bring back all of the support staff who are Trinbagonians. Bring them home. Cut out that $1 billion in wasteful expenses. Replace that with 5 ambassadors, embassies of Trinidad and Tobago in Asia, Africa, Europe, America. There was 5, the 5th one. Asia, Africa, United Nations. That's the 5. And those 5 ambassadors have 2 jobs. They are to operate an embassy who functionally sells Trinidad to the world and brings foreign direct investment to Trinidad. And they don't all have to be a BP. They don't all have to be a Shell. They could be a brand new company with 20 branches that looking to set up their manufacturing come Trinidad. Because that volume of work, all we want to do is create jobs. And the embassies that are abroad, we're not fighting war. We don't need ambassadors to help us fight war. And oil is so entrenched now. The headquarters of all the companies are here. Australia is part of Asia, Rose found. That here, all we need are embassies that are part of the job creation. The Progressive Empowerment Party understands the first responsibility of the government is not to fight crime. The first responsibility of the government is to create hope and opportunity. Once you create jobs for people, you will start to suck away the human resource from crime. We want to secure the nation's borders and end the drug trade and the gun trade. Once you do that, you will take the financing out of crime. We're going to shut down the corruption and remove the money laundering dollars that work its way to gang members. And that will take away the money that pays the gangs to operate. All of a sudden, people have choice and a reason not to be committing crime. If after that you still want to do crime, you try to make a police service and the repurposed army that would become Homeland Security, there would be enough personnel and motivation. Because like the Wrecker model, I want police officers to get bonuses, cash, on every crime they solve. Every gun, every illegal gun that you pick up and you bring, look, $2,000 cash. I want to see my police officers doing well from hard work, not catching their ass. Yeah? So all of a sudden, not only do the average person who could have been tempted to commit crime have enough opportunity to not have to contemplate it, but we have a police service so motivated to catch them that they wouldn't think twice about it. Once you deal with jobs, deal with home ownership. Jobs and home ownership work together to rebuild the community. To further rebuild the community, we plan in our education system to remove the child abusing SCA exam, make all schools 10-year schools, zone all schools, and give every child a GPA with a supervisor of education assigned to all 41 constituencies responsible for the performance of every child, monitored at the end of every term. That way, all schools would be prestige schools. As asked all the time to hear all the bullshit people tell you why Fatima better than Mokarapo, and it's borderline racism and it's borderline classism, and people don't know because they're misled. And we have this tiny little country where the only way for us to feel good about ourselves, we have to demonize other people. That have to stop. That have to stop. Anthony Strong you need to come and sit down in a PEP meeting, because for us to do that, Anthony Strong, we're going to institute body cams and dashboard cams. So for a proper crime to be interdicted, they would have evidence to back it up. Don't get so wild. I realize you're now hearing my voice. Ask questions. Don't just say things, because we've thought it through. And if you listen, you'll hear that we've thought it all through. We understand how to break up the policing into beat cops and mobile commands. We understand it. Trust me when I tell you, we don't want to be locking up people. The Progressive Empowerment Party is the party that wants to transform the jails into universities. We want to create a program called Literacy First. If you get caught doing a crime and you're illiterate and you get yourself literate in a 12-week program, your sentence is almost vacated. This doesn't apply to white collar and blood crimes. But if you are in jail and you get yourself literate, and you get yourself a first degree, and you get yourself a master's, and you get yourself a doctorate, by the time you get a master's and a doctorate, it's almost time to open the gate and let you out. Because somebody with a master's or a doctorate is not the same individual that went to jail without choice or hope before, without chance. Yeah? So anyway, I know we will drill down into details, and I know that people get excited to hear these things because they too have their ideas. And that's why we have meetings every Saturday at PEP headquarters at 19 Stanmore Avenue, so that people could come and engage these conversations. I'm just trying to give you an idea that there is an actual plan. There is a plan to decentralize how water is caught, held, treated, distributed. Even water monitoring, we account for that there is a plan to monitor the quality of water in the communities. The Progressive Empowerment Party advocates for the redevelopment of all our communities, because a nation is a collection of communities. A nation is a collection of communities. Once all our communities work, our nation will work. And it is time that we put our people first. And the only way to put our people first, our people have to put themselves first. Our people have to have self-respect. Our people have to say, you know what? I want government that works. I don't want old talk. I don't want to be part of your gang. I don't want to be part of your cult. I want a government that I can hire based on policies that they say that they're going to enact and what they're going to accomplish as the job that I could monitor. We plan to give you measurables, metrics. We plan to tell you that the Ministry of Works, we only want 11 ministers, not this madness that you see take place here. The 41 MPs, the 41 Progressive Empowerment Party MPs, and in any constituency that the Progressive Empowerment Party does not win, we will appoint a shadow MP to still represent you. We will put them in an MP office so that regardless of who else is your MP, if they're not doing your job, come to the shadow MP and the job will get done. We will make sure that the country is run from the bottom up. Like a rising tide lifts all boats. You've heard it before, those of you who brand new and hearing it for the first time. Listen, nothing we're saying is brand new. It's world, success leaves clues. It's all from first world and developed and functional nations. Sri Lanka can be diversified into agriculture, food processing, marine craft building, shipping, turnaround, cruise ship tourism, normal tourism, foreign direct investment in jobs. We could make this country functional. I mean, I could probably say this in my sleep now. We have the ability to put functional government in place. The people just need to want it. The time for us fighting one another for pettiness, they're behind us now. Let's come together. One people under one flag. Red, white, black, green, every shade in between. Let's get back together as one people and just make sure that the government does its job. The Progressive Empowerment Party is bold enough to say, we've been saying from the start, that the first action of a PEP parliament is to write into law recall legislation. That means any government or any member of parliament that is not doing the job that they promised to do on the elections when they were campaigning and auditioning for your vote, you could fire them. Just like how you voted for them and you don't have to wait the whole 5 years. Yeah? The better country that we want is possible. there are people in Trinidad and Tobago who benefit from how bad it is run. The fact that we don't have our courts either inside or next to our jails, people benefit from hundreds of millions of dollars transporting prisoners. It shouldn't be. We've known this for 2 decades, yet this exists. Or tell me, when you are defending the cult or the gang or the clan that you think like you because you wear their jersey, when you're defending them, do you stop to think about the quality of your life or your children's lives? Do you stop to think about what you could do for your loved ones if your money had value? If you could get a better job, and if from that job the earnings could have 10 times the value it has now? You could imagine if the $100 that we talk about in Trinidad, you break a blue note, it had no value. You could imagine if $100 could have buy you a small trolley of groceries. You could imagine how your life would turn around if transportation wasn't madness. How your life would turn around. We live in a country that pays the most ridiculous prices for cars, and we have 1 million cars on the road. You could imagine if we could take all that money out of all that overprice that we've made these people pay and put it back in their bank accounts. A better country is ours for the choosing. We just need to want it. There's going to be an election at some point. The Progressive Empowerment Party is standing up for you. Stand up for yourself. Until we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, work together as one people under one flag, those on top will work together as one criminal enterprise, and they will continue to mismanage and loot this country. Just look at our Christmases. The last 3 Christmases were ruined by property tax, license sticker, and now blue notes bullshit. The government know what it's doing, you know. It's destabilizing you, distracting you, keeping you off balance. It is time that we ended it. It is time the tail stopped wagging the dog. The government has no power. No government in this country has power. The people have the power. Keith Rowley is only Prime Minister because you put him there. You could remove him. We could have a better country. If you want it, you're going to have to vote for it. What we do next is important. Until tomorrow, stay safe, Trinidad and Tobago.